Guys, go slowly, we're still gonna get scared. They're gonna be the girl that was in front of me, right? Started holding my hand. This is yeah, I was on the left. I'm here. Why do I walk so fast? Is this fast? What the fuck? This is like the slowest I've walked in my life. You should be aboard 5 times for summer holiday. Can you help me? Real. Bye. See? We're done. You're better. Wow. Yeah, I have to do a tour every single day to get money. Yeah. You know the ice cream. In fact, every single person in the school.
Day, Mr. Day. How you doing, everybody? Today, let me just double check. Uh, Today is the 4th of July, 2024. Today is election day. Or if you win and you're a man, today is election day. And I'll tell you where we are. Uh, we're down here in Finsbury Park. Finsbury Park is in London, northwest London, in the borough, let's say just North London. And the time now is around 2 p.m. in the evening. We've got a glorious day today. Sunshine, temperatures about, if you're in the sun, it could be anything up to 25 degrees today. 25 degrees today. And it's bright and sunny day. So today is the election day. Official broadcasters can't really broadcast anything today. So this will go out later, and we're just here to make sure that we give you our point of view. And yes, election day. Who are the candidates? Why are we voting? The rise of the far right, the rise of people's insecurity living in the UK, the reasons and the causes for it. Rishi Sunak decided about 2-3 weeks ago to call a snap general election. And so one of the reasons he did that was to so that the opposition, to catch the opposition off guard. He had until September to call it. Really just a couple more months. So while the oppositions, because there's many oppositions, who were planning and taking their time, he chucked the cards on the table and he says, right, general election time. And so today is D-Day, as I've heard some people call it. It should be called today is V-Day, as in voting day. And within the, let's say the next, not 12, but let's say the next 18 hours to 24 hours, we should be getting some likely results. They always have an exit poll, and the exit poll is going to give us an indication, and that will be around, say, 11 p.m. tonight. We'll probably get we'll get the results of the exit poll, which will give us an indication of what the general outcome would be. But this game, I think, is anybody's game. And there's lots of things that should have been mentioned in this election that was astoundingly silent. But there are other independent parties which made it the forefront of their of what they were saying. This is a local MP, Nadina Nadit Lau. So that's she's down there in Tottenham, and she's really going on the Palestinian recognition of the Palestinian people, and the problems and the plights. Jeremy Corbyn is my local MP. He had to go independent because the official Labour Party has chucked him out. Keir Starmer has chucked him out. The funny thing is, if you didn't know and you're just watching this for the first time, Jeremy Corbyn was actually the leader of the Labour Party for the last leader of the Labour Party. The current leader is Keir Starmer, so he was in for about 3 or 4 years. This gentleman here is up for the Workers' Party, and the strange story about this chap here, and he's up in East Dulwich today. His name is Quentin Dennis Slowly, and he's there on Ha- Hall- Halloway, Mr. Workers' Party there, George Galloway, for the Workers' Party. And the funny thing is, in 2012, I was actually at Hustings that George Galloway did uh, in Croydon, and this gentleman was there, and he said he was young at the time, so he's like another 10 years older. So he says now he's mature, and if you want to hear his pitch, uh, why you have to vote for him, then just go back to the last live live stream I did, and you would hear him in the Operation Black Votes Hustings, and I was there and I live streamed it. Uh, this chap here, uh, he's local, but he didn't actually say which constituency he was he was gonna be in. But um, so this is George Galloway, and this is also on a Palestinian mandate, right? So part of the Workers' Party is about the Palestinian mandate, but there is another party which is a real spoiler party, uh, which is Reform, which is run by uh, Mr. Tice, but the name that comes to everybody's mind is Nigel Farage, and Nigel Farage gets all of this limelight. Now, Nigel Farage is probably the architect of Brexit, and I don't know how you view it, but most people view it as a complete and utter disaster. Some politicians are telling you the only group of people who are actually saying we are gonna go back into Europe again is actually the Lib Dem party, and they're only getting traction from the the antics of their leader, who's water skiing and bungee jumping and riding tractors, riding tractors in order to uh, catch hold of the press in order to get some publicity for his party. But Nigel Farage, back to the Workers' Party, they've they've actually they have about 200 candidates. It's about 200. It's over 100, I'm sure. 100 to 200 candidates being put up for this election, and they're running on many things, but mainly the Palestinian, mainly the Muslim vote, right? Nothing was said during this election uh, about the Muslim vote. It was also very silent. But we've been having protests outside universities. Individuals have been doing their protests in different places, but it gets no traction from the general press. But this gentleman here, Dino Filipinos and uh, Nadita Nadita Lau, right, both in this area, are on the Palestinian. And also, there's lots of Labour councillors who have resigned and decided to go independent. So this is going to be very, very, very interesting. There is so many different people in this game today, and how we really don't know how people are going to vote. And so this is going to be one of the most intriguing elections there is for many people. I've heard one person say this is like Christmas, and They're waiting for Santa Claus to come. Um, there's lots of people who don't know how they're going to vote, not until they're actually in the booth itself and they're ready to put the X. They would never know until that point who they're going to vote for. But from my point of view, um, the the government cannot pay the bill. None of the governments. It seems like all the 7 countries in the G7 have the same problem, and probably for good reason. They're all in the same economic system, or they fall in the same economic policy, right? Back to England, back to the UK. The government, time after time after time, has been telling us that they've actually increased the money which goes to these uh, organs of state, policing, the judicial system, the health service, education. All of these organs of state are on life support. All of them are in crisis. One of the reasons why they're in crisis is because of one. There's many factors, but one of the factors, the financial factor, is that the economic system that we're in, right? When they say, "Oh, inflation is only 2%," it is that every year prices actually go up. And even if it goes up by 2% or 3%, that is only some things go up by 2 and 3%. Some things go up by 20, 10% a year, right? And the following year it goes up again, right? Now, those of you who are in private rented accommodation, you know that. In fact, I've heard that certain people they've had 3 rent rises in 1 year, right? So the new government should legislate about all these rent rises. Things are just escalated at hand. It's called the cost of living. And back to the basic factor of why they can't pay the bills, because every year they say it goes up by 2%, but different things go up at different rates, and some may be larger, some may be lower. Every 10 years, the price is actually double, right? If your wage hasn't actually doubled in 10 years, right, you can't actually keep up with the cost of the different things that are rising. You know, to run a car insurance, right? They are constantly going up. They call it the free economy, or the free market, right? And the free market is based on whatever price they chuck out there, right? Whether it's £1,000 or £1,000,000, if you can afford it, right, then you will buy it. At £1,000,000, there are fewer people who would buy the product at £1,000,000, but it is not illegal to sell your product at £1,000,000, right? They had a thing called price gouging when the petrol price went up at a phenomenal rate. That's because it affects everyone and everything. If any product you buy in the shop, it had to be brought to the shop, and therefore it had to be transported there, whether it was by ship, whether it was by plane, whether it was by train, whether it was by bicycle. Each one of these used petrol, and even if it doesn't use petrol, it still needs energy. It still needs to be plugged into something, and wherever that source of energy is, we still have a lot of power stations still running on petrochemical, and we still have most of our transportation system still running on petrochemical. And even those who's got electric, you still have to go somewhere to get it charged. And how does the electricity get there, and what is the source of that electricity, and how is it made? It can still be fossil fuel. But back to so this was called price gouging, right? That's because so much people was affected. Suddenly, it became a political statement and a political point. So they managed to bring it back down because it affected everybody. But basically, if I was charging you £1 million for a product or £1,000 for that product, it is not illegal, right? And I'll give you a good example. Um, price of art, right? Price of art, millions and millions of pounds, right? Over the years, right? Price of houses, right? Millions and millions of pounds, right? Prices of fighter planes, billions and billions of pounds. Fight of aircraft carriers, price of aircraft carriers. I don't know. You tell me. Half £1 trillion? I don't know. So it isn't illegal to base your price on what you feel. It depends on the customer. So whether you pay £1,000 or £1 million, at £1 million you don't get so many customers, right? At £1,000 you get a lot more customers. A lot of people can afford your product, and this is the basic fundament, fundaments of the economic system which we are in. You can charge any price. Straight after and during lockdown, suddenly all our energy prices went up. Gas, electricity, they shot up. The government had to step in and actually give the citizen money in order to buffer the shock of all of these rises. Every now and then, the government would give home buyers some kind of relief or even a grant for first-time buyers. They will give you 30% or 20% in order for you to get on that ladder, right? So because price rises are rising and people can't afford it, the government actually steps in. A good example is everybody was given £400 when the electricity price went up, and the government has slightly eased it off, and we're about to feel the full effect of the cost of living about now and in a few months, when the government subsidy to the citizen is actually being eased off and run out. So remember HS2, right? Right. This is the thing about prices always doubling. They will give one price in the beginning, and then a few years later, you'll find that the prices has almost doubled, and then the next few years it's doubled again. In fact, the price has gone up so much. The first thing Rishi Sunak did when he came in was he cancelled HS2. He said, "Stop the project right there." Right. So I'm passing Houston every now and then, and there is just a building site which they don't really know what they're going to do with. It's just on hold. But back to the basic premise, the government can't pay the bills because it keeps on telling you that it gives extra money every year, but it doesn't give the right amount of money every year. It only gives an increase, but not the right amount of increase. Also, with that, it's also asking whichever organ that is of state um, to cut back at least by 10%. So even though it increases the amount it gives to any one of those organs by 10%, it actually asks them as well to reduce their running costs by 10%. So really, you're back to zero. But what you're actually doing is you actually minimizing, you actually working to the bone, you actually working with less than what you've started, right? So certain hospitals have been shut down, certain wards have been shut down, certain facilities have been combined. You know, there's a reduction in staff, right? And it's just a smokes and mirrors game, you know. Look, if you go back to the last live, uh, event I did, which was the hostings for the Operation Black Vote, and we had members of the Labour Party, Conservative, and a couple of independents there, the Green Party. Did we have the Lib Dem? Um, But the conservative constantly has this mantra: things have improved, this has gone up, this has increased. But here's what: show me where we got it wrong. Show me why we're still in the pain, why we're still feeling the pain. Tell me why we can't afford to pay our bills. Tell me why the rents keep on going up. Tell me why the fuel bills keep on going up. Tell me why the food keep on increasing. So you say this and this and this and this is better, but show me where it is. You know, the basic thing is we put these folks in charge to look after the country, right? And they've done a terrible job. They can't even look after themselves, right? And all they do is tell us, look over there. The reasons why we have these problems is because of the people who come in on the boats, right? But isn't it their job to solve those problems, right? Why haven't they solved those problems for the last uh, 10 years, 14 years, right? Galloway says, Galloway says, I'll tell you how you solve the boat problem. The people coming over from Dover on the boat problem. It says put one of Her Majesty's Navy ship between uh, England, Dover, and France. Right? Those ships are so big, right? You can actually see it. Right? You can actually see in the middle of that channel, right? From England, and you can see it from the other side. Those warships, right? Various types, from aircraft carriers to, I don't know. You got some war specialists out there, but these are massive ships, right? You could see them from 10 miles off. And the channel, I bet you it's less than 10 miles. Actually, we got a tunnel, right? We got a tunnel that goes from France to England, so it's probably less than 10 miles. So you put a big warship in the middle there, right? Compared to these minuscule little boats, right? It doesn't take much. We've got the best army, right? Right? We got the best RAF, right? We got the best navy. We're not using it. Where is it? Where are we using it? We're sending military armaments to Israel. We're sending military armaments to Ukraine. None of that was made mention in this election, right? None of the crisis in Israel was made mention, right? That's why we have this thing called the Muslim vote. There's no such thing as a Muslim, because it's a belief. If you say Jewish, what is a Jewish person? You know, and they come in many shapes and many sizes. So you can't take how one person who's Jewish views the situation, or one person you see from Israel who views the situation, and say the whole Jewish people, that's their view. It's made up of loads and loads of individuals, and those loads of individuals are expressing themselves in dismay in relation to the Israeli government. And the Israeli government is actually in crisis at the moment, because as far as I know, it's been disbanded, and it's only got a group, or a war cabinet, which is only a handful of people, right? So that hasn't been mentioned. So all our military assets, uh, the armament and stuff like that, are being sent to Israel. It's been sent to Ukraine, right? We're not even using it to defend our borders. In a very simple sense, we don't need to shoot anybody or blow them up, all right, or or landmines, or sea mines, or torpedoes, you know, or intercontinental ballistic missile. We don't need to do that. All we need to do is just simply put a warship in between uh, Dover and Calais, and you know that in itself is a big deterrent. But that is what we've been sold for all the ills of why the government has failed us. And it's failed us because we're seeing so much incompetence, right, in all the different sections. Or maybe it's deliberate managed decline. I mean, and who benefits from that? Actually, I don't think any benefits from that, right? So even if you have invested in those companies and you are a stock market man or a finance person, if 90% of the people in the country is in dire straits, then even you as a multimillionaire, you are still gonna feel it, because when you go to your luxury restaurant, the people that serve you at that restaurant get an ordinary pay. If their pay hasn't risen, then they are actually in crisis. You won't get a good service. They won't be able to, and there is crisis in many industries at the moment where people are not, they haven't got the workforce, right? Or people don't want those jobs. If you're getting minimum wage, you can't really survive in the city or even out in the shires and sticks, right? Because everything has gone up in price. There was one chap I spoke to a few years ago, actually before lockdown. He was working in central London. He could not live in central London. He had to live outside of central London because he was working in the hospitality industry. And you get minimum wage, but some of it, this is the other trick about the hospitality, some of your wage is made up from the tips. And what have some organizations done now is that when you're given a tip, the tip actually goes to the management. You don't actually get the money, right? So even though everything is really bad, and the 1% class is actually benefiting, your gardener, your cook, your cleaner, the person who looks after your car, your chauffeur, cannot live, not even comfortable, not necessarily comfortable, but just live, stay alive without going to a food bank. Or some people are staying in a caravan, some people are out on the streets, some people are sofa surfing. So even though you benefit from this economic situation, no, you think you benefit financially, the people that actually serve you is actually on minimum wage. And if they're miserable, you're going to get a miserable service, right? Or they're not going to turn up to work, right? Or they'll find a job which is closer to home, right? So it's a zero sum game, right? Which is going to hurt everybody. It's hurting people already, right? We got people sleeping on the streets already. We got more people sleeping on the streets. We got more people going to food banks. We got more people walking into supermarkets and stealing stuff and walking out, right? Uh, so we got those people in crisis, but we also got those medium-sized businesses that's actually suffering because they've got to replace those products which is stolen, and so they are losing business, right? So this economic crisis, this crisis we're in, it's called the cost of living crisis. The government can never pay the bills because it lies to us all the time. The truth about it is that prices rise twice the amount every 10 years. And it doesn't tell you that the prices rise by twice the amount every year. It just gives you the thing that, oh, it just goes up by 2%. Eventually that 2%, it just escalates. It just shoots up and it gets out of hand. The mortgage thing at the moment. So people are expecting that the mortgage would go down. It was meant to, the Bank of England interest rate is meant to be cut within the last couple of months. It's managed to stay the same. If you're in the money market, then talk about hedging your bets. It may not go down, not until, some would say, the end of the year. Some would say in the next couple of months. So those of you who are on a mortgage who went up within the last few months, it's gonna stay high. The thing about mortgages is that you have a deal that lasts you 3 or 4 years, 10 years, or what have you. So that's gonna stay high for from 4 to 10 years. If you've got a tracker mortgage, that's a different thing. The Bank of England said that those of you who have been lucky so far and your mortgage hasn't come up for renewal, within the next few months, when it comes up for renewal, some of you be paying an extra £200 to maybe £2,000 a month. Where are you going to get that money from, right? The government can never pay the bills. They're always lying. When the government gets into trouble, it's got a thing called quantitative easing. It just prints the money. Britain is in debt at the moment to about 98% of GDP, right? France is in debt at the moment to 113% of GDP, right? And it got told off by the EU because they predict that debt is going to go up to 137%, right? And what they tell in France, and France is already in crisis. That's a very good example. France is in crisis because it tried to increase the retirement age to 62. Over here in London, in UK, it's 66 to 62. And if you can remember, for the last few months before, it was called the Yellow Jackets. All the public sector worker was out on strike, all wearing yellow jackets, right? Because they were going to increase the retirement age. That's one way of cutting the debt of the government, right? Also, France is probably cutting other things as well. It has to do that because the debt that France is in is 113% over GDP. It means it can't pay its debt, right? It can't make enough money in a year to actually pay the debt, right? It just keeps on growing. And what did the French president do? He decided to do a snap election. So not only have we got an election right here, right now, the French election is in 2 stages. One was last Sunday, and the next one's going to be next Sunday. And you know what's going to happen? Well, I don't know what's going to happen. We're living in an interesting time. What is happening to France at the moment? The far right, which is its mantra is about the foreigners, is about other people coming in and taking the resources. They are actually leading at the moment. It is almost, for some people, a foregone conclusion that next Sunday, the far right movement coalition will be running France. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, right? But all I know is that they're there to expel foreigners. They're there to attack people who are lower down on the economic scale, right? The European Union, the EU, is actually now run by right wing. There are more right wing people there now than ever, right? And how are we going to feel the full effects of that? Well, probably give it a few months, right? And we will see. But France is in a crisis. It's in the middle of an election, right? Our election is today, right? It looks like the National Front is going to be in, and that's next Sunday. They already done the first one, the first part, which was Sunday gone. And France is literally our next door neighbor. The people themselves are going to be in crisis. They're going to have more cuts, right? It's going to be brutal. And you're right.
I'm
And
just gonna go and do tea and I'll be back.
all right, yeah, and it's going to be brutal. And over here in England, if I go back to, I haven't got it, UKIP. Actually, UKIP is up, but it's called the Reform Party, which is that's the far right party here in England, and not a mention of the far right policies during this election, thing. And if France is an example, if Europe is an example, right? Even though they say in the next 12 hours, 18 hours, that the Labour Party is going to be a landslide, we still don't know the effects of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. We still don't know the effects of the independent parties that have Israel and the Palestinian people as their main focus. There's a main problem there. There's a humanitarian problem there. There's the people who they call them liberals. The people who care about people in the world. The people who see suffering and feel suffering. Not like the other party leaders who just ignore it, doesn't make a mention. You know, you ready? Which side do you want?
So,
Yeah, you go. Right.
I'm on the right, of course.
Yeah. All right, come in a bit more.
Come in,
Yes, there. Yeah, that's it. Because there's two. There's one down there. Yeah, you're in. Yeah. All right. Now, what's in your mind today, Graham?
Well, there's so many things, but
The Karen.
as I got the bus through Islington,
Mm.
I saw an enormous number of boat Corbyn stickers.
You got some.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It's not that I've got high definition, but anyway. Yeah. Go on, Corbyn.
So,
yeah, but
yeah.
you're in Corbyn country, don't you realize that?
I mean, Corbyn. No, yeah, but interestingly,
Mm.
I've been thinking about this, right?
Mm.
Now, I'm not going to panic because, I mean, according to Novara Media reports, you know, that Islington is going to be Labour nondescript person, whatever his name is. So, and Labour nobody, right?
Mm.
And Corbyn is not going to win it.
Mm.
But let's think about the long game, right?
Mm.
The long game, and I've been telling people this, right?
Yeah.
Now, the long game
Yeah.
is that at the moment people are having the same heroin high as they will be having. Well, we don't know yet, but let's say what we think is going to happen, right?
Mm.
The majority, right? It'll be like the heroin high with Johnson and Brexit and Brexit and with sovereignty, and that was more nasty than this, of course. That's a nastier element, but nevertheless, it's the same kind of mechanics, like scoring a goal and being on the winning side and being right. But actually, the left have to play a long game because Corbyn will still be there when Sir Keir Smarmy sinks, and it won't take very long because he will push through some massive austerity. But he said no, it'll be austerity Mark 3. It'll be the same austerity because it's only one.
And I'm gonna make
I've got.
But this election is like Macron's first election.
Oh, you mean Sunday gone?
Macron was it? No, not necessarily. No, but previously.
Previous.
When he came along, he was the new star, neither left nor right. And he pushed through massive austerity, pension cuts and all sorts of benefit cuts and God knows what.
Yeah.
And he was socially liberal, right? Much more than even Smarmy's ever pretended to be. But the thing is, right? These and even I was thinking, That's good. And he managed to trick the left twice or three times to support him against Le Pen, right? While he was making these massive cuts. Now the bitterness against these cuts is so high that the far right can pretend to be the left, which could happen anywhere in the world and could happen in Britain. In 6 months or 1 year's time, they could be the Faragist vultures, right? Or even the Tory Faragists, the Tory far right, could pretend to be the anti-establishment, right? And Trump-like. So the thing is, it's for the left to hold their nerve, right? And yes, they will look defeated, but they're used to looking defeated. They look defeated. The independents won't get very far. They won't get a mention. The Greens won't get a mention. And all the other little left groups like Trade Union and Socialist Alliance, all these groupuscules won't get. But it's important to look what the French left are doing, how they're, getting rid of all their little acronyms, their battle fights over legalistic word games, or as Monty Python would put it, the Judean People's Front versus the
Front of
people front
of Judea.
of Judea.
Same thing. But actually, no. That used to be funny, but the subtleties.
No, it was not. No, it was funny because it's a spoonful of sugar making the medicine go down. It was.
Now we know what the
intensely
medicine
philosophical.
is.
Yes,
We know. Oh,
yes. Remember, the left in Britain far left in Britain used to be called the Heinz 47 varieties because they were very petty and they were bickering and they were all purists and they were bickering about what Karl Marx Volume 3 versus Volume 4 and who was more righteous than thou. And that came from a lack of confidence because they knew they were marginalized, and marginalized people often take it out on the nearest and dearest, the people who are very similar to them.
yes.
And
yes.
but this is disappearing now because a new generation is growing up who are not really interested in that, I think the Russian Revolution was great, but it was in 1917. So, I'm not interested in where Lenin was buried and whether it was suitable for him and all that. This is all rubbish. What I'm interested in is what are we going to do now? And whatever we call it.
Well, all right. You said on your way down here, the VAR media says, Germany is not to get in.
They're not saying it because they think it's great. They think it's awful. But it's like saying Trump could win. He's got high poll ratings. It's not a matter of being a traitor or being awful. It's just a matter of being honest.
So what did your eyes tell you when you on your way down?
Well, that the support is there, the loyal support. You see, there weren't any Labour stickers. So Labour might win a big paper victory, like Johnson won, paper victory. Rah, 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 the votes. But the real Labour Party is getting smaller and smaller in terms of members and supporters. And it will become Macron-like. Macron's middle way grouping, whatever it was called, right, was built more on a base than on an agenda and on an ideology, and so now, like the people, a lot of the Macronists, right, just peeled away. His support, real genuine support base left. Who's going to go knock on doors for him?
Do you remember the yellow jacket protest?
Yellow jackets, yeah.
Right. Do you see
Gilets jaunes?
Do you remember how the police actually put down?
Brutal.
Right.
Yeah, and Macron, right, has actually helped Le Pen. There's actually very little difference between them now because he's actually moved to in the racist direction that Sunak has.
Yeah.
He's just like Sunak. He's mimicked him and gone to the anti-migrant and veils and wearing veils and petty things, burkinis and all sorts of nonsense like that to cover up the fact that the austerity.
All right, you said austerity Mark III. So that protest in France, the yellow jacket, was about austerity. It was about cuts,
Yes, about culture.
right?
It was hijacked by the far right,
Mm.
but it was actually left wing, and the left wing eventually managed to boot the far right off the protests.
But we haven't seen any protests like that in the UK, right?
Since the poll tax rise.
Right. But if we're gonna have austerity Mark 3, people are already in crisis, right? People are just about surviving, right? Even if you got money, even if you get 100K a year, they're just about surviving.
Well, I just came out of the pound shop,
Mm.
and I saw some sort of very desperado-looking woman, right, trying to run out of there with toilet rolls. They managed to get her to drop them and that,
Mm.
and I think they're so used to it they didn't really sort of bother anymore. And it's just daily occurrence. It's
Oh.
daily toilet rolls.
Right.
Toilet rolls.
All right, this is another part. This is a good example of the economic situation that I
Mm.
keep on saying. Prices actually double every 10 years. Tell me, what in the pound shop is a pound today?
Very little.
Nothing.
No.
Well, next to nothing.
Nothing.
Right. In front of your eyes, prices go up every day. When the government
Every day.
say
Yes.
that they're increasing the money, it just brings you back to zero to the
Of course
increase.
it's not.
Plus, the little trick the government says, in order for us to give you that money, it wants you to cut by 10%.
Yes, of course. It's a,
Right? So you're actually going backwards.
Of course, because the brilliant thing about mathematics,
Mm.
right, is it enables you to produce the result you wish, and not be dishonest. For instance, you've got some standard, you've got three, and you understand this, three results
Mm.
for average.
The
For
mean,
averages.
yeah,
The mean,
the peak,
the median, and the mode. And the median and the mode are more like the bell curve. They are more in the center.
yeah,
But the mean
or
is
the
a
average,
very clever
the
average,
average,
because it's dividing,
the,
right?
the top and
It's,
the bottom.
it divides, right? The amount,
Yeah.
regardless of how skewed it is,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
with the number of numbers.
The average, the peak is
And so
rather
of course
different.
it's a perfect.
At the low,
So it's a really perfect way to manipulate, and actually to say we're not lying, because it is mathematically correct, but it's not humanly correct.
yeah, but-
Because if in Tower Hamlets, right,
yeah, mm,
you've got 20 bankers,
Mm.
right, that earn millions,
mm,
and you've got a majority of the 85% of the population
Yeah.
living below the poverty line.
yeah,
You're using the mean. You can work out the mean average wage
Mm.
as £500 a week.
I think that's about it now. That's the average rate.
No, this is how it works.
Yeah.
In arithmetic,
Mm.
but it is arithmetic,
Mm.
and no wonder people are fooled.
Mm.
Before I studied arithmetic,
Mm.
I did not understand this,
Mm.
and now I understand. Think, yes, no wonder it's a trick.
I was at Hustings Monday. It was thing by Operation Black Vote.
Mhm.
This guy here was there for the my guy,
Yeah.
Workers' Party.
Workers' Party, yeah.
Right. Funny enough, 12 years ago, I was at a Huskins, and he was just a teenager. He was saying, right. But anyway, he said, oh, Galloway gave him a call and asked him to think. But so yeah, so what I've totally forgotten my point. We're talking about economics, we're talking about money, we're talking about alternatives, right? No, people are fooled every day, right? The cost of living, right? Mathematics, right? But anyway, so you see what's happening, and that was a good example, the pound shop, right? Whereas prices never ever go down. There's no such thing in a pound shop for a pound, and that's a good example. In fact, up to a few years ago, the 99%, the 99 pence shop went bust.
Yeah, 99 pence shop.
The
Yeah.
pound shop bought it out,
Oh,
right?
It's not the other way round. Because that's what means penny on the income tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But still, people. So yeah, that was the point. That was the point. At this Huskins, right? The Conservative guy was there. Oh, we've increased the economy. This has increased. We put more money in this. But the question is, you see, the question is this. I don't feel it. Tell me where.
Have you noticed how the Conservative Party that was made up of privileged Etonians, but that did have a good education, and they were actually somewhat rational when they talk about economics. They might have been manipulative, but they actually checked their facts and figures to a certain amount of degree, right? And that's not saying I like them. That was saying that they actually did read books. Now we're now in the Trumpist world. It's unbelievable. We're now in the world where people just rant
and make up things.
Rant and make things up. And fact checking goes out of the window.
And ready-made Brexit.
Yes, Brexit. Yes, it started with Johnson. This populism in Britain. I mean, populism. It moved on to America, and it moved on to now all around Europe and around the world, probably.
What was that phrase?
Even Argentina.
The Labour Party is pregnant with evil or something. What was that? Did you hear the phrase?
No, but it's all not nonsense because it's all nonsense, right?
And you know who spouted it out? Mr. Nonsense himself, Johnson, right?
Oh wow, he actually showed himself up for what he is, right? Basically, he's basically an unemployed comedian. He's a brilliant comedian.
He's an unemployed clown.
He's a clown, yes. I wonder if he'd really make a good real comedian, because comedians do have to actually think about what they're doing. I think he's more like the kind of comedian you meet at the bus stop.
What is it about
than a person? Well, he's certainly nothing like like the Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. So their jokes actually deep. His are enormously shallow. It's like the guy down the pub who's basically. You remember the bullying jokes in the early 1960s? You know, about shirtlifters and about about the smallest book in the world, the Book of Italian War Heroes. And they made these, and Bernard Manning type, it was a belittling, and the mother-in-law and things like that, and with like say sex workers, prostitutes, they used to call it, but it was always had that kind of a nasty sort of edge. So Johnson's got that nasty edge.
But what fascinates me is that he's got a devoted follower. He's already shown
cult following.
Yeah, he's already shown you his material. You know what he's like, but you know what has not been said so much about is during lockdown, when he told everybody to lock, where people were actually dying, their loved ones are actually dying.
Well, that's what's done the Tory party in. If it wasn't for the Partygate, Johnson would still be doing well. That's very funny. He shot himself in his own foot by denying his Prosecco party that everyone could see.
And
that's what's done them.
And they've forgotten the first thing he did was actually when he got in.
Otherwise, he'd be doing a Trump.
Right, before COVID and before the lockdown, the first thing he did when he got in was he was actually shutting down Parliament, because he knew all of the ministers in there, whether conservative or were going to be against him.
Yes, the Liberals, And he wanted to put he wanted to put in all the lunatic, the Reform Party type people in.
Do you remember there was?
He filled him full of those the psychiatric cases.
They're there now.
Yes.
Do you remember there was one woman who challenged him from Perogian Parliament?
Oh yeah. Gina Miller.
But funny enough, have you come across if she's running for any party or she's independent or she's playing politics at the moment?
No, didn't hear that. Could be, but I didn't hear it.
Yeah, so
I think she's probably living in fear, because she's had so many death threats and what. You know what I mean? She's really, she's had so much criticism, and I think she's she's probably had more criticism than Diane Abbott.
Diane Abbott.
More.
Yeah. Right. So
That'll be an interesting
Right.
election, won't it?
so we got Partygate, right? And we got people who are remembering that they lost their loved ones.
Yeah.
I used to watch all of those.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah,
I heard it on LBC. A man who I heard a man calling up the LBC, right? And he hated Boris Johnson to the bottom of his guts
Mm,
because he was worked in a funeral undertaking,
mm,
and he had to tell people, right, and he did it, he did it very dutifully. He had to tell people, and he was about 22 at the time. He told people that they could only have a few of their family, one or two, and they had to decide the parts of their family they couldn't invite,
mm.
and it was very awful. And he said the great shock when he saw this Partygate picture, the denial, and he's speaking for a lot of people, whether they can articulate it in the same way or not. That bitterness is what's done the Tories in. And if Trump did a Partygate, he'd be finished as well.
Well, he did. He did the 6th of January.
6th of January. But I don't know how that hasn't.
And you know what? I watched.
Why? That's even much worse. How come that didn't work? Or is it what Hitler said about having if you lie, do a really big one? Maybe he did a big lie. Or maybe America is more Christian fundamentalist and less educated. I don't know.
I watched that 6th of January unfold
Terrible.
live.
Really, it's awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
He should be in prison. Trump should be in prison.
I think I was watching something else. There was
You know,
another.
in third world countries, it's called a military coup. It's called a coup.
Yeah. Oh, and while we're in America, before we get back to the politics over here in the UK, isn't politics fantastic? Biden.
Yeah. Stubborn as a mule. An egotist. I did think a lot of his integrity, right? Although I'm far to the left of him, but he's just stubborn. He's just an egotist. All he can he should just retire. He's had his 4 years in the limelight. Just retire and give it to somebody younger, more vigorous, and somebody who actually can defeat Trump. Because Trump is defeatable by a socialist, right? Who is actually vigorous and young.
My biased media has made mention of Kamala Harris, right? Who's the deputy, right? Who's meant to be. She's the deputy president, right? So it should be natural she stepped in.
It should be natural, but I think the sexism and the racism in America is probably worse than in Iran.
Yeah.
It's horrible. You'd probably be more likely to have a female ayatollah than you would to have a female president.
Right. Well, here's who they trying to chuck into the mix. Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, right? They're trying to chuck Michelle Obama in, right? The Buttigiegs, the other contestants. Funny enough, I am familiar with them because I watched the American election, all of the debate. A
lot of them are quite good speakers. But
yes.
The problem is, why do we have to have either the king or the king's wife? Is America really a feudal society that has two kings instead of one? Is that why it's called a democracy? Because two kings, right, switch. There's two kings. Look, why can't other people have a say?
Funny enough, I saw that article.
Why is it only the president? Why do they have a king president?
We haven't. Well,
I mean, Sunak got rid of Johnson. Why can't they just say, "Look, I'm sorry, you've got to step down. You might not like it, but you have to."
Right. So in a few, might be days, it might be weeks, but it looks like there might be a changeover with Biden. But meanwhile, back over here.
Yeah.
Right. Johnson.
Must happen. It must happen.
So Johnson was
Or
out
else Trump will win.
So the newspaper's actually saying that, don't let Labour win because they will change. They will change the. They'll change the electoral. The
Oh,
electoral.
because there'll be no opposition.
Well,
Like an elected dictatorship.
that's what
Lord
they say.
Hailsham called Margaret Thatcher a thing, yeah.
Mm.
And they're using this very cleverly.
Mm.
But they didn't say that when Johnson had his big majority. In fact, they had a huge. The reason that the Tories are being such shit is they pushed so much through because they bullied because of their huge majority. So everything the Tories say
Mm.
is dog turd.
Right, but did you hear the dog whistle one that Rishi came out with about Starmer 6:30 on Friday having dinner with his family? You didn't hear that one?
So you mean Mr. Multimillionaire Rishi Sunak doesn't have dinner with his multimillionaire wife
No, what it is this.
on a helicopter
Uh,
on a when they're flying to when they're flying off to California. They don't have their servants giving them a nice helicopter
no,
dinner.
you know what the dog whistle is?
Salmon.
No, the dog whistle is that Keir's wife is Jewish.
Well, they're both playing that one up, aren't they?
Right.
They're both dog whistling that one.
Right. So they've chucked that one in, but you see, if that one hits, right, we got the far right, right, who's pretending. I don't know, the far right who's pretending. I don't know. Anyway,
What are
if
they
they-
pretending? No, I want to hear what you have to say.
I don't know. I'm confused.
Pretending what?
I don't know. Anyway, so if that hits,
Pretending to be human? Pretending to be alive? Pretending to be made of blood?
no sheep's in wolf clothing, right? Like Le Pen in France seem to have moved more to the central, but it's still the same. Right? But anyway, if that hits, right, what that will do?
Well, whenever any capitalist system is in difficulty,
Mm.
they always pull out bigotry,
Yeah.
the race card and other forms of bigotry.
Right. If that hits, that will push more people to reform.
Well, you see, you can't actually take the right wing's clothes and defeat them because they'll only become more right wing, and that's happened again and again and again.
Right. So
If you say
Yeah.
if you say, oh, the deportation flights are good, thinking that you're going to steal their thunder, then they'll say, right, we want concentration camps next.
yeah.
And then you'll have to say, well, I agree. Well, I see what you mean by that. I don't really agree with that, but maybe one or two will be okay. And they'll say, no, you're dishonest. You're not because you don't know where you stand. What we need is lots of them,
What we need is people to.
especially for unemployed people.
It's mandatory that you've got to join. You got to join the military. You've got to do what is called
National service.
national service, right? They're banding that around, and those lovely kids over there listening to us. Yeah, you got national service coming. You got national service coming.
universal discredit.
Huh? I know.
Universal
But the kids-
discredit.
The kids who've been doing the national service, national health is broken. You know, yeah. So the dog whistle, right? So they become more extreme. They're already playing that game as well.
Yes, but why it's not working, even amongst the elderly conservatives,
Mm.
is because their care homes are being damaged. You see, elderly people are more concerned, right, at being looked after when they get old. You see, yes, they might be very, very bigoted, but that's second to the fact of them being looked after.
Who are they going to vote for?
I think a lot of elderly conservatives will stay at home. I think they'll say we're disgusted with everybody. I think they're disgusted with the Conservatives for damaging social care, and also they're sick of Boris Johnson for lying and allowing a huge you know, sort of like genocide through neglect in care homes during COVID. And I think that so they won't vote Conservative, but they won't vote anything else. So they'll stay at home. They'll sit on their hands.
That's a,
That'll be the biggest problem for the Tories.
that's a,
Them sitting people, their core supporters sitting on their hands.
but that's a good phrase. Phrase. Genocide by neglect.
By neglect, yes. In fact, that actually is a kind of that sums up the effects of capitalism and austerity, because there's homelessness everywhere, and a lot of those homeless people you see are going to die. There's
I-
homelessness everywhere.
I know, because they
Benefit cuts,
Yeah.
suicides.
mm,
You know, of course, it's by neglect. You see, in law,
mm.
you know, it's legal to, you know, neglect somebody and let them
It's a
starve.
person who works with the NHS. It's called Do Not Resuscitate.
Mm.
DNR, Do Not Resuscitate.
Yeah.
Right? So, genocide by neglect.
Yeah.
Interesting phrase. Where did you get that? Was it yours, or did you hear that from somewhere?
No, I've made that one up.
All right. You can claim that one. They're going to start using that. Genocide by neglect. Hey, it's got blankets there.
Blankets?
Oh, no, these are probably... No, these are probably security guys. who've
security
come-
guys. They're going to
who've come
sleep
down.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sleep over. Yeah,
They're going to sleep over.
it's
Yeah.
cheaper. Literally got a tent.
Literally, got a tent. Yeah, of course.
Right. That's exactly what I was saying about the cost of living. See, they can't afford to stay in a hotel. They can't afford
No, of
to
course not.
rent. They would stay in a tent, right? They'll sleep in the tent, and there's probably other things they'll
Yeah.
spend a couple of hours in the tent. Then they'll probably there's a communal area where they all right. And this is why
You know, if I see some security guards here in Finsbury Park at night sitting cross-legged by their tents, right, and with their yellow jackets on, I shall you know
give them
Give
a cup
them-
of tea.
give
Bring them a cup of tea.
bring them a cup of tea and give them a nice clip-on tie. That they won't have to pay for. A nice clip-on tie, just
Oh.
like I used to wear.
All right, so we got demographics, right? So the normal voters for the Conservative, which is the elderly, who genocide by neglect.
Yeah,
right?
those care homes. You know, I mean, what is it? Run by donkeys, right? During were the best people illustrating what happens in children's homes, in elderly homes. Sorry, in elderly homes.
And children.
Yeah, everything during the elderly homes in particular during the COVID thing, because you remember that Johnson didn't give a damn and said, you know, let the bodies pile high, and in the care homes they did pile high, and he was responsible for that. He let them pile high. Many of them were people who would have voted for his majority. They would have voted for him, and he let them pile high. Now, a lot of their relatives, right, will remember this. You see, because it's when the crunch comes that you know who your friends are. You see, so all his superficiality, it works. It was great entertainment during the Brexit times when he took bulldozers through, you know, red walls of foam and things, and when he went up to the north of England with a fish and wore his you know, like a different costume, his rugby costumes.
Oh no! I thought he's pretending to be Christ.
No, he's never done that. Actually, he's never done that. I think that would probably work better off in America. I don't think it would. He's clever enough to know that it wouldn't really work very well in England.
But
Too secular.
who is it that are going to vote for the Reform Party, Farage and Tice?
Well,
Who are they going for?
Listen, we all know cranky bastards. We all know people who are so embittered that however poor they are, right, they're full of hatred. You know, there's still anti-vaxxers around. There's still people who are who believe that there's a conspiracy by some demonic force, and that there are still people who are downright insane.
And who would the anti-vaxxers vote for? You think?
Right wing, like Lawrence Fox. Lawrence Fox made his name during an anti-vax demonstrations, and then he joined Reform. Now he was anti-establishment. He was saying that we won't have enough freedom. Now he's joined the authoritarian reformers. You see, yeah. The anti-vax also helped Trump during that lockdown.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's like Trump. One of his mantra during his last was, "We're gonna drain the swamp. We're gonna drain it." But the biggest alligator in the swamp is Donald Trump. He's part of the whole. But it's like Rishi was saying. He says, "Look at all that damage that has been done by the Conservative Party. I'm going to do much better." But wait a minute, you are the Conservative Party. The damage has been done by you. You're the biggest. You're part of the.
Well, you see, he's seen how he's taken populist to its ludicrous extreme. I mean, he hasn't thought it. He's taken it to its extreme. You see, if Donald Trump does win the election, is he going to say that it's been cheated? I mean, he'll become an authoritarian, and he'll become he always was the establishment, but what will he say? He'll still be against the establishment. What establishment will he be against?
He's the president.
Will he split himself? Will he ban hamburgers or what? Will he ban Coca-Cola? What?
Well, he did ban some Muslim countries coming during COVID, didn't he?
Not Saudi Arabia. No. What he loves King Salman. What do you mean? So it's chosen, isn't it? It's all manipulated, isn't it?
Right. So we've got the anti-vaxxers, right? So I'm just trying to work out the demographic. They had a thing the last general election. They call them the shy Tories, right? But when they polled them, it almost seems like Jeremy Corbyn was actually gonna win, and then suddenly it just.
Have you noticed that Jeremy Corbyn has turned into a byword for something bad?
Negative.
So I hear this on Times Radio. I hear this on the BBC World Service Radio. I hear it on Radio 4, LBC. Whenever they're talking, they just throw him in as like, anything that's to do with failure.
They can attach
him. But have you noticed they don't mention him with anti-Semitism anymore? They used to mention him with Russia, which they don't anymore. I mean,
IRA.
That's gone. Yes, no, they just mention him as something bad. They just attach him, so he becomes demonic.
So the stupid.
That's how populism works.
Yeah. So the stupid people out there, after a while, will begin. It'll be a negative just by mentioning it.
So if even if a sort of right-wing Labourite person like Smarmy or somebody else on front bencher has a clever whiz and decides to nationalise something, water or something minimal like play to socialism, minimum railways or something, they'll immediately be accused of being Corbynism, and then they'll stop because accusing somebody of Storbynism would be like in America accusing someone of communism.
But Starmer,
you're now a monster.
Starmer has in the manifesto to nationalize the sort of British energy company, right?
That's very strange.
Did you hear that? You heard that, didn't you? And they never attacked him on the socialist angle.
No, because they know he's not going to do it. They know he's not going to do it. They know he's used that play to the gallery. He's got to have something left which is socialist. So they're not going to look because they'll give up the game. I mean, yesterday the Standard said they like Starmer. That's ridiculous. Come off it. And so does the Times, and so does the would it be the Telegraph next? What will it be next? I mean, the establishment like him, so they know he's a safe pair of hands. So they don't. They if they thought he was really going to have anything nationalised,
Mm.
then they would have genuinely attacked him.
And what's happened to the post office? The last thing that was nationalised.
It's nothing. It's quite been put on ice, hasn't it?
Well, they did
You
say.
know, they've got there's lots of moral outrage,
Mm.
but where the money's concerned, I'm afraid they've got their fingers caught in their zip.
All right, let me conclude because you've only had half a show today, and because I started early.
Yeah.
All right, so
Well, I don't mind continuing because I've got nothing else
Well,
to do today.
me,
I'm sorry I come late, but anyway.
I'm all talked out.
Talk. Okay, well, I can do the. I can talk for you. Listen. This morning,
Yeah.
I went 7:10. I voted, and I
Okay.
voted green. There's only a few. Unlike the local elections, there's only a few things to choose from. Hudson Small, right? Now, the thing is, I text people, right?
Yeah.
I text my drama teacher, right? Right? And I voted green, right? And that didn't say you must vote, right? But of course, I'm hoping they will. But I'm trying to lead them by example, but not say you must, because that's not right. But he wrote me back, and so did I. And then I called somebody else, right? Then I called another woman that I know, right? And um, and she said so did I, and I felt really good. And another woman, and she used to actually be more pro-conservative, and then she went to the Greens, and I thought she would vote Green. I said, "What do you do?" And she wrote, "I voted the Labour because the woman in my area was quite pro-feminist," and I wrote back, "Great," because I thought that's brilliant. But I later text back and I said, I hope this woman who's quite honourable that you voted for doesn't get stabbed in the back, like because if she is honourable, her time will be numbered.
All right, we got about 10 minutes maximum on. All right, so
So I was basically trying to support her choice, but at the same time explain that in the future there might be a big disappointment because because look, I'm sure that even in the post Smarmy Labour Party, there's probably quite a few honourable people, but they'll be got rid of. They'll be got rid of,
now behind the
or they
scene,
leave.
yeah, behind the mainstream media, we have so this Workers' Party, and this is independent. How do you think that the Gaza and the thing is going to play with the election?
Well, he didn't eat sort of ants and frogs um, and kangaroos' testicles, right? He is genuine. This con man over here jumps on the bandwagon. I do love what he says about Palestine, right? I just don't trust him, but I like what he says. But he'll disappear, and hopefully he will migrate over to the more genuine people.
Do you know how many independents there were?
Hmm?
Do you know how many? I didn't do the check. I did a check on my Galloway there, and he has about from 100 to 200. He put people in up for election in Lane. I don't know how many independents there is, but I'm sure there's quite a few. I remember you telling me about a lot of Labour councillors has resigned and they've formed together, and this is probably a good example.
Well, I hope when the independents get together, right, start working together with all the other little left groupuscules, whether they're Trade Union and Socialist Alliance and all the other groups, I mean, who's like who are on the left. I don't want to give them names because I'll play into their silly little games if I go on about this stupid acronyms. But there's a lot of genuine people there as well. But sometimes they're genuinely dogmatic, which means that people forget about them. But people, we need genuineness, but we don't need dogmatism.
All right. Last
Catmatism, maybe, not dogmatism.
Sunday, when was it? No, Saturday, I was down outside the Bernie Grant Center,
Yeah.
right?
It's a lovely place. Great.
Not for some people anymore. So I had a few.
Oh, well, that was, I went 20 years ago when a friend of mine was going to teach Kathak there, right? I was going to teach cat teaching, and it didn't work out.
There was a protest outside, right?
There was a protest last night outside Starlton's place. Yeah, for
place?
Feinstein. Outside,
Oh,
yeah, by
right.
the Working Men's College. I heard it. I was listening to a jazz performance, right? And I heard it outside the window, very loud.
Right.
So was it? What was this about? You tell me yours,
all right.
because I told you mine.
The thing about Bernie Grant Center is the people. There was a protest, right? And the protesters, they're really just getting rid of the community groups that are using it, right? And there was one community group which they just doubled the rent on them and just gave them the eviction notice. And so they're gentrifying. So they want, right? So whereas the building was originally for the community people can't afford it, right? And so there was a protest there, and I was there with them. And what it is, it's like the council would slowly have private company run their service, right?
Is it a Labour council?
Yes, it's his name's slipping, right? He's Tottenham.
Tottenham, yeah. Bernie Grant.
No, yeah. Well, what's the young? He's a lawyer anyway. He'll come.
Grant. Bernie Grant. Been on LBC, no?
No.
Somebody else.
Actually, he did have a program on LBC.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So anyway, anyway, so what the councils are doing. Right. So what the councils are doing is that they're privatizing, right, all of the services and what have you. So the company would pay the workers minimum wage, right, and they will be profit for the companies, but it's not council run. It'll be private run. It was like all these healthcare, all these retirement homes was run by the council once upon a time.
Yes.
Right?
So lots of things were. In fact, people won't believe that the Milk Marketing Board was quite successful and produced milk for farmers and gave farmers a good price. And you know, there's so many things like the public toilets run by the council. There's so many things were. I mean, wow.
Yeah. But just like the same way that they've got rid of all the youth clubs, just the same way, slowly, they're getting rid of these community buildings.
Yes, community buildings.
And that is a prime building there, the Bernie Grant Center, which they slowly pushing people out. And I realize that's the strategy that they've used in many different ethnic minority area, where there's a community business. They're slowly being pushed up. The rent's gone up, this has gone up. The funding for the person who actually runs it is actually cut, right?
And guess what the unintended consequence is, right? That the unforeseen consequence is more poverty and more crime and more bitterness and more desperation, right? And people selling illegal drugs
in order to make money and live up.
And it's perfect stigmatization, because if I was on the right wing, why would I want to legalize drugs when I could stigmatize ethnic minority people and white poor people for their own poverty.
There is
for the economy they have. That's their economy.
So I have this formula. I have the saying that the government can't pay the bills. And there's another trick. I've got to come up with a snappy word.
They say they can't. They won't pay the bills.
No, they can't.
They can't.
No, they can't.
Is it because of Brexit?
No,
they shot themselves
under
in the foot?
basic economic system they have, they can't pay the bill. That's why Kenya, right? For them to really.
Oh, the IMF. Okay, I got it.
The monetary system.
IMF,
yeah. So part of
well, that is, you're right. In a Marxist sense, I'm actually wrong and you're right, because as Marx said, capitalists, right, whatever they're like as a personality, they might be nice people, but they're forced into competition constantly with each other. So they have to compete with each other, and they have to undercut each other.
Right.
It's the system. It's the capitalist system.
So Kenya can't do quantitative easing.
Yeah.
America can, Europe can, Britain can, but basically they don't. What's the name? Always used to hit Jeremy Corbyn with this, right? Theresa May. She always used to say,
And said he was making big promises, but where's the money coming from?
she always used to use, yeah, she used to say, where is the magic money
Where's the
tree?
magic money?
There is a
tree?
magic money tree because during COVID they found it, right? But that's why the GDP.
Well, they always find a magic money tree to arm Israel with. Well, they've sent our RAF planes and to protect them, right, from these drones. I mean, of course, there's a magic money tree for when they want it. When the royals are given magic money, the royal grant, they give magic money. The Royal Grant Britannia, there's lots of magic money, right? And all these military parades that they have is from the magic money tree, and it's.
Yeah.
I mean, the Olympics was from the magic one. Who paid for the Olympics? That wasn't for free, was it? Wasn't built for free. It wasn't a magic. It was so the magic money. Well, it was magic. It was a magic money tree. The magic.
And,
Yeah.
and that's
And
why
the Olympics is still causing these three boroughs, particularly Newham, but also Tower Hamlets and Hackney, has put them into massive debt. The Olympics, like it's done everywhere else around the world. So there is a magic money tree.
it works for some, right?
Yes.
And it only works for some, and those
Yes.
who know. But
Only
as you
works
see,
for people who have the magic and the magic tie.
right?
If you wear the magic Etonian tie
Right.
pin, right, and you shake hands like like that,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
and you roll up your. I can't do it. Right, I have to do this.
And you see, so they found the money in the first place, but all those three boroughs, you say you're in debt in relation to that. You see, so they find it for that, but in reality, they can't pay the bill, right? And in fact, what they do, that's why that's why a step.
I guess listen to the yeah. I'm going to tell you something
Go on,
funny, right?
go on.
Yesterday, right, I went 2 months ago. Or about a month and a half or 2 months ago, I went to Saturday Squares and I saw Sleeping Beauty. I got a cheap £15 ticket. I'm quite lucky I've managed to get them, right? That was great, right? And outside there was a one woman protest, right? It was at Northern Borough. She was actually saying that they're going to get rid of all the musicians. The Arts Council are going to cut the money to the musicians, and that's going to be the end of their jobs, right? So I said, yeah, thanks, I'll do something. I said, can you send a letter? So I sent a letter to my MP, right? Lynn Brown, she's going to retire. But anyway, I heard nothing in 2 weeks. And just before the election, I get a letter.
Labour Party.
Official Labour Party, they're going to look into it. Not going to do it, going to look into it. And I thought, that's funny. It's just before
They want your vote.
So
They just want to give you the indication.
an indication, but it doesn't say they're going to do it. It's just there.
That's a good example, right? You see the cuts there. It's a good example why the government can't pay the bills, right? There are tricks and thing and mirror. But one thing was, so I've got, so that phrase, the government can't pay the bill. You can see some of it. You can't see some of the other parts, right? But I've got to come up with another phrase, right?
Mhm.
When you can't pay for food,
Yeah.
the government actually gives you go to the shop and you find you can't pay for the food, right? Because the price is thing. So you go to the food bank, right? So you get free food.
Well, the job centre now gives people vouchers to the job centre.
All
This
right.
seems ridiculous.
No.
Vouchers.
No. It's
So
part.
it's become part of the capitalist system.
It's part of the economics. Yeah,
Yeah,
capital
that's
system.
the new
But
economics.
guess what?
New
right?
economics.
So guess what? So you give them free food. It may not last forever, but there's going to be a point where that freeness stops.
Well,
right?
well, the Trussell Trust will run out of charity funding.
Yeah, but now,
Charity funding.
yeah, but look what happened.
They'll have to have state funding for food banks soon.
Yeah.
Because charities will have fatigue.
Yeah,
They
but
won't be
look,
able to do it.
but look what happens. After you say the food bank runs that way, when you go back to the shop,
Mhm.
the prices hasn't gone down.
They've gone up
It's actually higher than
higher.
when you couldn't afford it before.
When you couldn't afford it before.
You're now in more trouble,
more trouble, yeah.
right? Because your income now, whatever it's social security, it hasn't gone up.
Yeah, and there's a huge problem that's mentioned by the Trust of Trust and the other charities, right?
Mm.
Is that a lot of homeless people, they're demanding quick, ready-to-eat meals
Yeah.
because they can't cook. It's expensive,
Energy, yeah.
especially the standing charge.
Right.
It's very, very expensive to cook. That's a huge problem that homeless, and not just homeless, but other very poor people have. They can't cook.
Yeah, I'm still yeah. I'm still live. I'm still live.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So here's two other tricks, right? One is first time mortgage, right? So they can't afford it. So the government gives them 1/3 of a grant, right? Right, for them to get on the ladder, right?
Well, you see, that's part of the Tory ideology.
Right.
That's what got Thatcher, right, where she was. Home ownership. You get rid of collective council housing, collective housing associations, and an ideology of house and car. So they have to help homeowners and car owners.
I was going to
because
come on
it's
to the car.
because it's individualism.
Right.
But the thing is, they've now the unintended consequences of them not doing that, because I mean they are greedy bastards, and even though they know that they should really help first time home owners become Tories at the age of 22 and lifelong Tories by letting them buy their house, right? They're not even doing that because they're so greedy. They're so greedy that they've even forgot the basics of Adam Smith capitalism.
All right.
They don't even know it.
All right. That's
They
the
just know greed.
all right. That's the house.
Adam Smith would be sick.
Right. Let me go to the car now. Now the car. Remember ULEZ. Right?
Yeah.
Remember, Mayor Khan said he will give you money, right, for you to scrap your old van.
Mhm.
It will give you
To get an electric car.
exactly. You can't afford it. You can't afford the house. You can't afford the new car, but they give you a subsidy. What that means is that the
You
price.
can sleep in the car.
Well,
Back in America.
yeah, it's
That's perfect.
right.
That's why they have big cars in America.
Right.
Because you're going to have a whole family sleeping in the boot.
Right. The person who has that car and the person who has that house subsidized can just about afford it. If there's another,
Yep.
if there's another shift in cost,
They were shifting costs. They can't
Right.
do it.
they can't do it. They'll follow theirs, and that keeps all the prices artificially high.
Yes, of course. It's what's called a cartel. To companies in Adam Smith type capitalism,
Mhm.
the theory is constant competition that makes prices lower, and they always spout
Doesn't
that.
never comes out low.
No,
Never
because
does.
the reality is cartels. Now, cartels are not officially allowed, but in fact, the big capital
Mm.
is based on cartels
Mm.
and aggressive takeovers and that.
Mm.
Big companies take over small companies, so they keep getting bigger and bigger. So big, like big fish eating small fish. So and they have cartels, like we did with an earlier podcast a long time ago, talking about how Freddie Laker was put out of business
Yeah.
across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
This was a cartel in action.
Mm.
This is how cartels work,
See what it boils down
to
to.
keep the prices artificially high.
What it boils down to. I think-
Against Adam Smith's is ideology, which they espouse, which is the Adam Smith Institute is meant to talk about the tax-free alliance. The tax was meant to keep undercut each other and keep prices low. But in actual, the reality is
Continue rising.
artificially high. Yes.
Right. And it goes back to that slogan that was
And the
used.
same in Argentina under Milei. He's created huge poverty by getting rid of subsidies and that, and he was meant to solve the inflation problem.
You see
Has
that?
it been solved?
You see
No. So now he's going to dollarize their economy,
that? Right.
give up their sovereignty,
So when you take
and make them a puppet,
so when you take away
like
that
the Cold War.
so when you take away that subsidy to the poor, you see everything crashing.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
when they
poor people spend money,
Right.
rich people don't.
Yeah, but here's what. That's when they
What does Sunak need to buy?
nothing.
Nothing. So you get somebody sleeping in a tent in the park here, right? And if the more money you give them, the more they'll buy things.
I'm trying to conclude, so we got
Yeah.
have a couple of minutes. So it goes back to that slogan that Bill Clinton used to George Bush. Was it senior or junior? Anyway, he said, "It's the
In fact, after they smoke their last joint, they'll go out and get themselves a nice big meal."
the phrase was yeah, and the phrase was, and what we've been talking about almost the last 15 minutes was the economy. And
Yeah.
the phrase was, "It's the economy, stupid,"
You gotta shoot
and
it.
it's still the economy here, right? Cost of living, right? So let us conclude. So tonight is election night. Tomorrow, what do you see?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't got a crystal ball. I really don't know. But like you, I'm just listening to what they're saying. The polls are saying this and that. If they're to believe, there'll be a big Labour majority. And it'll basically and in a week's time, the austerity will begin again. By Rachel Reeves will start, and then the cuts won't happen immediately, but the cuts will happen slowly after 6 months and then increase because they're not going to tax the rich, so the cuts will start. And we need to be around to be able to not just say "I told you so," but to be able to actually soothe the people who are really hurt and disgruntled and pained because like they've come down from their election high, and
Reality,
and reality
hangover, the
it's like
headache.
the hangover, yes.
All right, so let me leave it at that. And from my point of view,
And we have to do this so that the Faragist populists and other types of populists don't jump in and actually, like vultures, start eating off the carrion of people's hopes. Lovely, isn't that good? The carrion of people's hopes.
all right, are we still there?
Actually, I'm gonna check something before we go. Right, I was in the working men's college and I heard not only some music and some poetry and some acting, but some poetry. And I was really impressed by one young Caribbean woman who got up and spoke some poetry. And she wasn't well educated,
Okay.
and she made it wasn't a normal like poetry where the grammatically correct, but it was very heartfelt and sincere. I felt little droplets in my eyes because she really meant to talk about the environment,
Okay.
and it was really heartfelt and touching. And I thought, wow, that's what education should be: outreach. It isn't the same usual people that know that with a English literature degree. Wow! And I just thought, wow, why don't we have more of that? That's education. So that made me feel very good, and I'm still feeling good because of that. It was touching and real, and I just thought, it was everything I would have wanted to happen, and there it happened. This woman who's basically, from the streets, got up and read some poetry she'd written, right, in her language, in the way she wrote it, and you could hear a pin drop because it was real. It wasn't just, hey, yeah, all that stuff. No, it was like after she finished speaking, there was more silence because it was real. Because it was like, wow, wow, oh, this is like that. Who's that? And what's Angela Davis and Maya Angelou type. That kind of poetry reading where you don't like jump up and down, but you actually go, oh,
All right, we've gone off. We've gone off.
yeah,
We've gone off.
yeah,
We've gone off. See,
yeah. You know what I mean, don't you?
see, we've gone off. See, I knew the time was up. See,
Yeah.
we've gone off.
Okay, it happened. It's a mechanical thing. It's all right.
Mm.
But we used all the time up anyway,
Yeah.
so that's good.
All
We
right.
didn't leave anything wasted. That's good. Oh, we can relax now. We can do something. Tottenham and Palestine vote for Vendita Law. Independence.